know how we've been saying, we and Never Trump, that Trump cannot go more than 48 hours without saying something stupid? Remember also how the last few days Trump has been practically chained to a teleprompter? I mean, there were even some like Leon Hunt who said that, oh, well, this is probably not a good strategy for Trump. I mean, now his big mouth has put him way behind Hillary Clinton, and now they're going to chain him to a teleprompter and make him boring, taking away any chance he has of pulling off a Hail Mary to come from behind. Well, you know what? When Leon Hunt wrote that at Red State, I thought, just hold your horses, dude. I mean, you're obviously looking for things to write about because you know very well that there's no way that Donald Trump can go more than a few days without saying something stupid and counterproductive that will just bury him all over again. And yesterday was one of those times. Now, this was the first report. Ben Howe at Red State yesterday on the latest Donald Trump nuclear gaffe. Now, I think we all know that part of the argument for the Second Amendment is that our founders actually ran into the issue of a tyrannical government, and as such, having guns turned out to be a good thing. That's the ultimate purpose of the Second Amendment, for the people to be able to overthrow a tyrannical government. That's ultimately what the Second Amendment is about. Now, I know, as I've pointed this out myself many times, yeah, well, the government's got nuclear weapons, so... And no, that's not saying that the people should have nuclear weapons either. Don't get me wrong, but that's the original rationale for the Second Amendment, so that the people can overthrow a tyrannical government if it comes to that. Now, that said, as a general rule, presidential candidates should probably refrain from sugging that merely disagreeing with the Supreme Court pick is grounds for that type of revolution. Yet, it's hard to translate Donald Trump's comments on the question of Hillary Clinton's Supreme Court picks any other way. Here are his comments from yesterday, which created the latest firestorm.
All right, we were listening just a short while ago to Donald Trump. He's out on the campaign trail. He's in the important battleground state of North Carolina, specifically in Wilmington. And he just made a statement that we want to play for you. I've still got Kayleigh McEnany sitting next to me, a Trump supporter, to talk about perhaps what the implications of this statement were. Here you have it for yourself.
Hillary wants to essentially abolish the Second Amendment. By the way, and if she gets to pick her judges, nothing you can do, folks. Although the Second Amendment people, maybe there is, I don't know. But I'll tell you what, that will be a horrible day.
All right, so Kayleigh is with me. Let me just say, as we have covered so much on the Second Amendment, Hillary Clinton has never said she wants to abolish the Second Amendment. She just wants, fair and smart gun laws and to keep, guns out of the hands of folks who just shouldn't have them. That said, the curious part of his statement, although the Second Amendment people, maybe there is. I don't have Donald Trump sitting here. I don't know what he meant by that, but what do you think?
I think he's referring to the fact that the National Rifle Association is the most powerful lobby, hands down, in the United States. So if anyone can stop a very anti-Second Amendment agenda, it would be the NRA and the Second Amendment folks. And I think when he talks about Hillary wanting to roll back the Second Amendment, he's referring to how she doesn't like Supreme Court jurisprudence on the Second Amendment, which includes the Heller decision that says the right to bear arms, in fact, includes the right to own a handgun. Okay. So, whether he's simplifying that or not, I know Hillary Clinton simplifies a lot of his policies, calling it the Muslim ban, even though that's never what he proposed. But that's what my take on that is, given just hearing it in this moment.
We will see if he clarifies a little later on. We'll be listening.
Now, of course, people will still claim it was out of context, likely saying that he meant Second Amendment. Folks whom he mentioned in the third sentence will oppose having the Second Amendment repealed, which he mentioned in the first sentence, So the Trump campaign defense might come down to splitting hairs over which sentence was in conjunction with, as opposed to separate from, the other sentence, although they really didn't issue any kind of defense. They haven't yet, anyway. I guess the best defense of this is that it was a joke of some sort, but that's not a particularly good defense in this case. It turns out people still get all bent out of shape when you joke about your supporters assassinating your political opponents. Ha ha, get it? Now, let's just look at this honestly and candidly, folks. Did Trump suggest that Second Amendment supporters might assassinate Hillary Clinton if she nominated Supreme Court justices that took down the Second Amendment outside of the Article 5 process? No, he didn't. Did he jokingly imply that constitutional originalists who understand and support the Second Amendment might assassinate Hillary Clinton if she nominated Supreme Court justices that took down the Second Amendment outside of the Article 5 process? It could be taken that way, yeah. Thus, smearing true conservatives and dealing another body blow to the tattered, beleaguered GOP brand. Or in other words, just another day at the Trump office. For the last couple of days, Leon Wolf, as I mentioned earlier, has been saying at Red State that it was a mistake for Trump's handlers to put him on the teleprompter so much. Wolf argued that at this point, given how far Trump has fallen behind, being boring was a mistake and eliminated his only chance to catch up with Hillary Clinton. Wolf said it's time to let Trump be Trump. And I just waited for the other shoe to drop because I knew it would, because Trump being Trump is precisely why he is so far behind. And Trump being Trump is not going to generate any Hail Marys. I mean, you don't find four-leaf clovers in a compost heap, all right? So it was only a matter of time, and then now here is Leon Wolf's mea culpa at Red State. Clearly, quote, as I often have been when it comes to Trump, I was wrong. Well, I wasn't, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I have watched Trump's remarks about Second Amendment people, including the full context, about a dozen times. I think there are a couple of ridiculous explanations being put out there for Trump's comments. The first, which is being put out there by the Trump campaign, was that Trump was talking about Second Amendment supporters utilizing their political power. For one thing, you would have to really squint hard to view that as an even possible interpretation of the sentence in isolation, given that the most natural meaning of the words would suggest, the use of guns.
Okay, so what do you need? Besides a miracle.
Guns. Lots of guns.
Neo, no one has ever done anything like this.
That's why it's going to work.
But the full context of Trump's remarks makes it clear that he is explicitly saying that if Hillary is elected, they will not be able to undo her actions politically. Now, these are the comments that came after the gaffe. Here's the quote. Hillary wants to abolish essentially the Second Amendment. By the way, if she gets to pick her judges, nothing you can do, folks. Although the Second Amendment people, well, maybe there is, I don't know, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. But listen to what he said after that. But I tell you what, That will be a horrible day if Hillary gets to put her judges in. Right now, we're tied. No. Oh, he meant on the Supreme Court. You see what's going on. We're tied because Scalia, this was not supposed to happen. Justice Scalia was going to be around for 10 more years at least, and this is what happened. That was a horrible thing. So now look at it. So Hillary essentially wants to abolish the Second Amendment. Now, speaking to the NRA folks who are great, when you, and I tell you, so they endorsed me. Yeah, you can tell he's not on the teleprompter. They endorsed me very early. No, not really. It's very late, actually. My sons are members. I'm a member. You see? I mean, in New York, in Manhattan, he's a member of the NRA. That's another lie. We can add, I think, the National Rifle Association, we can add the Second Amendment to the justices. They almost go in a certain way hand in hand. Now, the justices are going to do things that are so important, and we have such great justices. You saw my list of 11 that have been vetted and respected and have gotten great. They've gotten great since he endorsed them. That's what the words say, folks. And they a little bit equate, whatever the hell that means. But if you don't do what's the right thing, you're not going to have. Either you're not going to have a Second Amendment or you're not going to have much of it left. And you're not going to be able to protect yourselves, which you need. From him? Yeah, I'd say that's right. Which you need. When the bad guys burst into your house, they're not looking about Second Amendments and do I have the right to do this? The bad guys aren't going to be giving up their weapons. But the good people will say, oh, well, that's the law. No, not going to happen. We can't let it happen. We can't let it happen. Close quote. The entire point that Trump was making, insofar as his meandering word salad can be said to have been meandering towards anything, is that once Hillary is elected, it's all over politically. There is nothing you can do. Once those judges are seated, it's ball game over. That's exactly the scare tactic he's using here, is that electing him is the last firewall Second Amendment supporters have. And of course, in reality, he's as much of a gun grabber as Hillary Clinton is. For him and his campaign to come back after all this and suggest, oh, we were talking about them using their political power is, well, bullshit, frankly. The second interpretation set forth by the Clinton campaign is that Trump was suggesting that his supporters should literally shoot Hillary Clinton if she were elected. If he were really going to call on people to assassinate Hillary, this would sure as hell be a weird way to do it. It looked to me like Trump was trying to be droll or humorous. He just failed to do it in a way that was in accordance with basic decency, good taste, and good judgment. Remember that Trump does not really understand conservatives or how they think because he's a liberal Democrat, remember. He has the same level of understanding and contempt for them that the average writer at Salon.com has, which is located, by the way, in Manhattan, and is trying badly to pretend to be one of them. So he thinks, yeah, these yokels will appreciate a good joke about how Second Amendment supporters can always shoot people they don't agree with. They'll like that, and cracks it off without a second thought. Knowing, nobody can convince me otherwise about this, knowing the press is going to pick up on it and smear every real Republican with the same broad brush. I mean, for somebody who purports to know how the media works, he knows what they were going to do with that comment. He knows, that's why he did it. Of course, the fact that Donald Trump did not actually want any of his supporters to shoot Hillary Clinton does not make his remarks okay in any way. Obviously, people tend to get a bit tetchy when you start talking about shooting people who are running for president, especially since this year and this election has a more 1968 feel to it than any other election in recent history. especially since Trump's supporters have shown a repeated propensity to engage in violence without showing any remorse against Trump's political enemies. Trump almost certainly did not mean that he wanted anyone to shoot Hillary Clinton. Whether any or all of his supporters grasp that is a completely different question, and his subsequent denials don't really help because his more deranged supporters will just assume he is doing that for political expediency. Hence the nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Hillary Clinton supporters are right to blast Trump for doing this, even if it was a horribly conceived off-the-cuff joke, as it clearly was. All this goes to show, though, that Trump simply cannot be trusted to maintain message discipline without being almost physically chained to a teleprompter. And when Trump breaks message discipline, he doesn't do it in a way that's just amusing or exasperating. He does it in such a way that it causes huge, rippling collateral damage to anyone standing within a 10-mile radius, meaning the rest of the Republican Party or the actual Republican Party, actual Republican candidates. Which, by the way, every elected Republican in Congress is doing, at least metaphorically. It no longer seems possible that Trump will be able to dig himself out of the hole he's in, electorally speaking. The only thing that's left for Trump to do is to mitigate the fallout to everyone else. And if the end result is that Trump is boring and uninspiring along the way, well, let's be honest about it. There is no way that Trump is going to mitigate the fallout to everyone else, because that's why he's in the race. And just as a postscript, and my apologies to Jennifer Crawford in Richmond, Indiana, who loves Mike Pence. I had no problem with Mike Pence until a few weeks ago either. But he's got to have the worst job in America right now. Worse than John Boehner had as Speaker of the House with the Tea Partiers versus the conventional Republicans, and just the worst job in the country. Because he is playing straight man to Trump's vaudevillian candidacy, as Susan Wright points out this morning at Red State. Apparently, as an 11-year-old supporter queried last week, Pence's job as running mate of the biggest fraud to ever be forced on the American people is to clean up the never-ending media messes. Now, here's what Mike Pence said last night to a crowd of a few hundred. Quote, "It seems like every single day the national press latches on to some other issue about my running mate just each and every day of the week," Pence told the crowd, extending his usual stump speech riff on the press. "But you know what? They're not talking about anything having to do with Hillary Clinton." Now, Pence speaks as if he doesn't know who his running mate is. It's like somebody. It's like he was. It's like he was playing caddy for Mitt Romney 4 years ago. I mean, he really doesn't know that Donald Trump is his running mate. This is his raison d'etre. This is what he does. I mean, it's not as if Trump is on the witness protection program, for heaven's sake. The biggest and most pathetic aspect of this is that Pence has got to know that what he's saying is nonsense. He does know. It's like Jean-Luc Picard's description of being a Borg drone. You're mute and helpless witness to everything that some malevolent outside force is compelling you to do. Except Trump didn't assimilate Mike Pence. Pence volunteered. That's why I call him Cuck Pence. He chose to do this. He selected his fate. Now, the press is going to do what the press is going to do. Trump used outrage and a complicit media to roll over a crowded field of more seasoned professional, actual Republican candidates. Composure, policy knowledge, and an actual plan to defeat the Democrats in November was traded in for the circus that is Donald Trump. If there is an issue for the press to latch on to each and every day, it's because that's all Trump has in his wheelhouse. Controversy. It's not going to get any easier for Governor Pence either, because Trump has already indicated he has no intention of changing his ways. I mean, now, to give you an idea, and again, this reinforces what I've been saying about Trump is running media interference for Hillary Clinton. He is protecting Hillary Clinton. He is shielding Hillary Clinton. Governor Pence went on to say the following. You're not even going to believe this. Yesterday at a rally outside of Orlando, Florida, the father of the radical Islamic terrorist who murdered 49 Americans attended a rally, was on a Taliban supporter, don't forget, was on television through most of the rally sitting behind Hillary Clinton. And he said he was there because he supports Hillary Clinton because she's, quote, good on national security, close quote, Pence said. Now the media is not talking about that. I expect because Hillary Clinton's been a disaster on national security. You know what? Pence is right about that. You know why the media was not talking about that? Well, if you're watching the video this far, you know why they weren't talking about Hillary Clinton being a disaster on national security, because Trump threw them red meat, or blue meat as the case may be. I mean, I'm sure Pence understands how this works, but he has voluntarily been assimilated. The father of a terrorist attending a candidate's rally and even receiving special placement in the audience is bad optics. There is no doubt. And in any other circumstances, that would have been the story for yesterday. During any other campaign season, with any other opponent, Hillary Clinton would have spent the next month at least trying to explain away that incident. However, along comes Trump to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. He makes a statement that could very logically be seen as a threat against his opponent's life, and of course, that becomes the main story of the day, and you cannot tell me that Donald Trump didn't know that was going to be the case. You cannot tell me that on those grounds, on that basis, he didn't do it deliberately. He did. We endlessly hear about, well, Trump knows how the media works. Anybody going to try to convince me that he didn't know that was going to be how the media was going to take what he said yesterday? Connect the dots, Trumplicans. You've been swindled. You've been fooled. Donald Trump is trying to get Hillary Clinton elected president. His good friend, Hillary Clinton, I might add. If I were working for one of the major news outlets, you know what? You'd had to have covered what Trump said. Now they should cover what Hillary said, what Hillary did with the father of the Orlando jihadist shooter. But you know, anybody should know that they were not going to cover that when Trump gave them this blue meat to cover. Connect the dots, Trumplicans. Figure this out. Even now when it's too late. Just for your own self-respect. Because that's all you've got left. And you don't even merit that, frankly. A candidate suggesting that perhaps Second Amendment people, i.e. gun owners, would have something to say about Mrs. Clinton's Supreme Court picks isn't even clumsy speech. It's outright reckless and sends a message at a time when our nation is sitting on a powder keg that no responsible person should want to get out there. Of course the media forgot about some guy sitting behind Hillary Clinton at a rally. He didn't pull the trigger in Orlando after all. He was just the dad of the guy who did. But thanks to Trump, it became a big nothing burger to the press. They didn't even have to rationalize it or cover it up. The media didn't have to play defense. They could go on offense. Trump gave them something to shoot at. Great way to throw Second Amendment and gun rights under the bus in the process as well. Expect to see the Clinton machine, La Clinta Nostra, latch onto this remark and use it to push a gun-grabbing agenda, like they weren't going to do that anyway. Using this as proof to tie lawful gun owners to the dangerous rhetoric of Trump, and that was another purpose of it, to smear conservatives, to smear constitutionalists, to smear his own supporters, his own Kool-Aid drinkers. Good Lord, people. I cannot believe that Douglas V. Gibbs can't comprehend this. You know what Hillary Clinton's going to do with this? You know what the Clinton campaign is going to do with this? It's going to be all over her campaign advertising. She's going to take that video clip of Donald Trump suggesting nudge, nudge, wink, wink, ha, 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 that his Second Amendment supporters, i.e. conservatives, Republicans, are out to assassinate Hillary Clinton. And it's going to be in it's going to trickle down. Every single Democrat campaign across the country at every level is going to have that attached to them. Every Republican is going to have to be defending themselves, saying, of course Second Amendment supporters don't want to shoot anybody. That's not the purpose of it. All the progress, all the ground that we have gained, making the case for conservatism over the past 40 years, out the bleeping window, thanks to Donald J. Trump. And the fact that 40% of the GOP nominating electorate chose him. The comments were, of course not, meant to incite violence, Pence said. It is not the first time Pence has lashed out at the media after Trump has made controversial comments, i.e. stupid comments, i.e. sabotaging comments. When Trump seemed to encourage Russian hackers to find Hillary Clinton's missing emails, Pence said the comments were laced with sarcasm and intended as a joke. You know, that almost doesn't matter. That almost does not matter once you understand what he's really trying to do. And I just told you what he's really trying to do. He also said the news media have not paid enough attention to the victims of the 2012 attack on the American consulate in Benghazi, Libya. Yeah, that's true, but Trump is helping them not pay attention to it. I mean, one has to really wonder if Mike Pence is finding himself waking with a violent start in the middle of the night, cold sweat beating his forehead, desperately forcing his mind to cut through the fog of sleep as he tries to distinguish between nightmare and reality, only to find that the reality of his current existence is worse. Sorry, Governor. You signed on with this traveling freak show. Next time, read the fine print before you sign your life away.